Okay, good morning, everybody. It's May 12th, 2020. This is Yoel Kortick, the Senior Librarian at Ex Libris. And today we're going to be continuing our 5-part series on Alma Digital and digitization requests. And last time, those of you who joined us on May 5th, we discussed an introduction to title level collections, the universal viewer, the Internet Archive and Book Reader, and the full text search using the Internet Archive and Book Reader. And today we'll be discussing Patron and Staff Mediated Digital Deposits. This is our second session. We've got 3 more sessions where we'll be discussing access rights and copyright declarations, document delivery and document delivery patron digitization requests, setup, and workflow. So everybody sees my screen already. And I'm now on our Knowledge Center. I'm under Alma Training, Extended Training, Presentations and Documents Digital. And we have here all of the sessions of this 5-part series, together with links to the material that covers what we're doing in each session. So today is session 2, and we're discussing Patron and Staff Mediated Deposits. I'm going to send this link out to everybody right now, just to make sure you've got it. And for those of you listening to the recording, you've got the full path, or you can just do a search for Presentations and Documents Digital, or even Patron and Staff Mediated Digital Deposits, and you'll find it there as well. Now, we're not going to be going through the PowerPoint. We will, however, just show the first section, and then everything we're going to do will be live. So I just click that link, and I'll open it, and I'll begin talking a little bit from the PowerPoint, just to define what we're talking about here. And then we're going to open Alma, open Primo, and go through the whole. So what do we got here? What is, first of all, a digital deposit? So anytime somebody submits digital content to Alma with the intention that it's going to become part of the repository, that's a digital deposit. And that's what it says here. Actually, the submission of digital content to Alma with the intention that it become part of the repository. Those of you who were on our session last time saw that we added digital content to the repository by being in a record in the metadata editor, going into the inventory, manually adding a representation, and then to that representation, we manually added a file. And that's one way to do it. There's other ways to do it, such as an import profile. And then what we're talking about today is the digital deposit. And the material can be deposited either by staff or by patrons. When it's created by staff, that's called a staff-mediated deposit. It's done on behalf of a patron, and it uses a deposit profile to determine all kinds of things, such as does it need approval. Next week, by the way, we're going to be discussing the access rights and the copyrights, which are also related to this. And when a staff does it, of course, he does it via Alma. And when a patron does it, he or she does it via Primo, or via a dedicated interface, which may be accessed from multiple points, one of them being Primo. And we'll see that, so it'll be a little clearer anyway. Now, when the digital deposit is done, it creates 3 things: a bibliographic record, a digital representation, and a file. Just like if an item were created, a physical item, if I want to make a parallel comparison, if a physical item were created, we would also have a bibliographic record, but in that case, we would have also a holdings record and an item. For a bibliographic record, we have, for a digital deposit, we have the bibliographic record, the digital representation, and one or more digital files. Okay. And with that, we can leave the PowerPoint, jump into Alma, and start our work. So I'm going to pop into my Alma here, and we're going to begin by looking at the deposit profiles. Because as we go along here, we're going to be doing actual deposits. And when we do those actual deposits, we want to see how it behaves differently, either for different patrons or different collections, etc. Okay, so I'm just logging in here to Alma, and then we're going to go straight to the digital deposits. And I've got two digital deposits here. What's going on with my login? We'll just be patient here for a moment. And our deposit profiles are going to be based on, oh, I got to click login perhaps. Okay, sorry about that. Our deposit profiles are going to be based on the user group of the patron. So let's go to resources and to deposit and to manage deposit profiles. I'm at resources, deposit, manage deposit profiles. Okay. And I've got three profiles here, and we're going to look at the first two. Rather than adding one, we'll look at ones that exist, but it's the same as if I had done add deposit profile and filled in here. I'm just going to look at an existing one. We have two of them here. The deposit one is called Deposit Articles about Library and Information Science for Faculty. And another one is called Deposit Articles about Library and Information Science for Graduate Students. And let's go and look at them. So we're going to start with the one for faculty, which says it's for faculty. And what do we see here? So we see a name and a description. This will deposit material to the collection. All deposits, all deposit profiles include a collection to which the deposits are made. Last week, we discussed creating a collection, editing a collection, what the collection is. Now we're defining the collection inside the deposit profile. So here, we're depositing to a collection called Library and Information Science, Scholarly Articles from University and Staff Students. I could choose any collection. If I click the Select from List, you may recall, those of you who joined us last week, that we used a collection called Wildflowers of Israel, and we could choose that one as well. Oh, I just have to spell that properly, and then we'll get in. And I just need to put that two words in. Now I got an extra character in there. Sorry, everybody, about my spelling. So this is the collection we used last week, if you recall. And this week, we're using a collection called Library and Information Science, Scholarly Articles from University and University Staff and Students. That's the name of the collection. My deposit profile is active. Now this one says auto approve. We're going to see that it's possible to create the profile so that when an end user does a deposit, it will require approval from the Alma staff user before it actually becomes part of the repository. So we have auto approve is checked, so it will not need approval. We have instructions for the user, and this is relevant for user group faculty. So I'm just going to write here on the side, just so we can follow what we're doing here. Let me make a new file here. So I'm going to say for faculty, auto approve. Okay, that's our first deposit profile says if the user group is faculty, then auto approve and unsuppress the bibliographic record, and it goes to this collection, Library and Information Science. That's our first profile. Second profile is also active, goes to the same collection, but does not auto approve. And after approval, also unsuppresses the bibliographic record. And this one is for graduate students. So let's say here that for graduate students, just so we can go back after I'm writing this down so we can see what exactly happened and why, we're saying for graduate, not auto approve. Okay. Now let's take a look at two patrons, because we're going to use this deposit profile now to see what's going to actually happen when a patron comes and tries to do the deposit. So, we looked at both of those, and now we're going to see what is the patrons that we're using. So, the first patron we've got here to our users, we have a patron named Alicia. Alicia is user group faculty. Okay, so this, for example, will be Alicia. Then we have another user named Greg Brady. Greg is user group graduate student. So we'll say, oops, why is that open? We'll say Greg is a graduate. Then we have another patron. His name is Bob Barker. Bob is an undergraduate student. So we're going to say here, there is no profile for undergraduate. Because we also want to see what's going to happen if somebody who we never defined a deposit profile for him, what's going to happen if he tries to make a digital deposit. That's Bob. I'll say the last names here. Greg Brady and Alicia. Okay, so now we've got our three profiles, our three sample users. Now, how does an end user make a digital deposit? And for that, I will go to the PowerPoint for one moment because we want to see the URL. So every institution has an instance and the name, the code of their institution. For example, me, where I am right now, my instance is EU00, EU00. My institution code, if I come to configuration and I come to general and I come to add or edit a library, my institution code is EXLDev1inst. That would mean that I can log into Alma by doing http:// the name of my instance. This is not related to digital, by the way. Alma Ex Libris Group com. Many also have a address specific for their institution, such as University of whatever, Alma, etc. But this also will always log in. Alma Ex Libris Group com /institution. I'm showing this because I want to show how we can get directly into the digital deposit URL. So this would go into my Alma. If I open up another browser here, such as Chrome, and I pop over here, then I get to my login page. So that same URL, instead of institution, deposit, just like it says here. For local login, it's the Alma domain, which we just said is the instance Alma Ex Libris Group com. Deposit the institution code. If I'm doing social login with Facebook, login with Google, etc., a whole nother topic, then I would do the same thing but add and authentication equals social or and auth equals social. And if I was logging in with a SAML, these are just methods of authentication. The systems person at your institution for sure knows how you're logging in, how you're authenticating. So in my situation, I'm doing a local authentication. So I'm going to take this URL with the deposit. So if I take the same exact URL, instead of the institution, I say deposit, and I'm going to stick that into the URL. Boom. That's going to bring me to a different type of login. And once I log in there, I have the option to do the digital deposit. And we're going to see that in a moment. I'm just going to go back to the chat for a minute and see if there's any questions or comments before we actually start now with a real digital deposit. Okay, and I see a lot of people have joined in the past couple of minutes. So let me just take a look here who's with us and what do we got for the chat? Okay, does anyone have any questions or comments? If so, feel free to ask. No questions or comments. Everybody still with me? Can you just send in, say, oh yeah, I still hear you, everything's fine. Okay, Paul hears us. Toby hears us. How about you, Amy Chow? You hear us all right? Boaz? Okay, they hear us as well. Great. So, oh, and Adit's with us. Good morning, Adit. All right, so let's now log in here. Looks like I've got an internet issue here. Let me try to reconnect. Sorry about this. Just making sure of the internet. Okay, that looks all right. Site can't be reached. Okay, there we are. Minor internet glitch. Sorry about that, everybody. We're in. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so this link where we're logging in now to do the digital deposit can be put on the website. It can be put inside Primo, wherever the institution wants the patron to come so that he can make the digital deposit. Along comes Alicia, who we said is a faculty. She's a user in the library with a user group faculty. She logs in and she wants to make a digital deposit. And just by chance, I've got a couple of digital deposits here that we're going to use. So let me go look at my digital deposit. So we've made a situation here where the end user can deposit, for example, an article they may have written, a thesis they may have written, something they want deposited into the repository. And we're going to take, for example, investigators from the National Taiwan University of Science and Technology have reported new data, et cetera, et cetera. Alicia logs in. She's responsible for this article and she wants to deposit. Right now, she doesn't have any deposits. She's going to create a deposit and she sees the name of the profile or profiles which are relevant for her. She's user group faculty. There was one profile for user group faculty. She's going to click it and now she can make her deposit. So she'll put in the title of what she wants to deposit. She'll click here to choose the file or just drag it in. She'll drag it right in there. It was in Chrome, sorry about that. Drag it right in. She'll read the terms and conditions if she wants and say she's read them and submit. She now submitted her digital deposit. Deposit is in process. Now, if we recall, deposit was successfully submitted. We just got a message. If we recall, faculty gets it auto approved and Alicia is a faculty. So Alicia now also has an email. She's actually going to have two emails. One email is going to state that her deposit was received. Another one will state that the deposit was approved and it's already going to be part of the repository. So here your deposit investigators from, oops, sorry about that, I'm going a little fast. Your deposit investigators from the National Taiwan University has been submitted. So she's aware that it's been submitted. And then as she gets a status update, your deposit has been approved and she can view the deposit. So if she links here, it opens up directly into Primo. You can see here it's Discovery. And it shows the article that she deposited. If we go here, this is what she deposited. I'm going to double click it just to open up the PDF. This is what she deposited. News RX, information technology, et cetera, et cetera. And when we look in Alma, that's what we've got here. In the Discovery, it was already deposited. Where was it deposited? Let's go back to Alma for a moment. Let's go to the collections, manage collections. And inside the profile, we defined that we wanted it to go to this one here, Librarian Information Science, scholarly articles from university staff and students. This is where all of the digital deposits are going. And this is right here, investigators from the Taiwan National University reported, et cetera, et cetera. So the record was deposited. It's got an MMS ID here. Next week, time permitting, but next week we'll discuss why did it get a certain format in the bibliographic record? How did the bibliographic record get created this way, et cetera? So this is the deposit that she made one moment ago. You can see that's today. 7:22 is local server time. It's 7:22 now in Amsterdam. And it went to that collection. Got the digital representation here. Let's go look at the representation. This is what was created. This digital representation when Alicia made the digital deposit. And here's the file that she deposited. So that was done. The digital deposit was made. We saw that it's already in Primo. It was submitted and it was approved. Wonderful. Now comes along Greg Brady. He's not a faculty member. He's a graduate student. Graduate students, if you recall, do not get the digital deposit automatically approved. So he comes along now. Alicia will sign out. Let's close this first of all. Alicia signs out of the option of making the digital deposit, and instead, Greg Brady signs in. Okay, so now our graduate student logs in. He creates a deposit, And he can see only the digital deposit profile, which is relevant for graduate students. He doesn't see the same one that Alicia saw. Alicia's ended with faculty because that was what we named it. And this one is ending with for graduate students. Greg clicks on that, and he's going to make another digital deposit. He's going to deposit investigators from the Taiwan National University report new data on information science. This one here. So he deposits it, comes over to Chrome, drops it in, gives it a title. Maybe he'll give it an abstract and say, the investigators made a breakthrough in coordination with Professor A. Okay, and save all that. So now it's got a title, it's got an abstract, we loaded the file, we agree to the terms and conditions, and we submit. And we get a message, deposit submitted successfully. Now, Greg is a graduate student. It's not supposed to get auto approve. So if we go look now at the mails which were received, inbox, now we see only one new mail came in, and this one says it's been submitted. Alicia got one that it was submitted and it was approved. Greg, however, only has that it was submitted. And soon we're going to look, not right now, I'll just give you a small taste of what we're going to see. There's a section here, resources deposit, approved deposits. All of those deposits which require approval are here. And here it is, the Taiwan University report on information science with that deposit profile that we just saw a moment ago. It's waiting for approval. Because when Greg made it, it used a profile which did not have checked that it did auto approve. Again, just to show that, I'm going to go back. If we look at that digital deposit profile, this is the one that was for Greg, edit. This is for Greg because it's graduate student, and it does not do auto approve. So it hasn't already gone into the repository. However, Alicia, who is a faculty member, does have auto approve. It's auto approve, it's faculty, it's unsuppressed the bibliographic record. So the whole process completed, and the whole process was all the deposit was already discoverable in Primo. Okay. Before we get to the approval, let's try one more deposit with someone who can't do a deposit, and then we're going to move on to the staff mediated deposits. So if you recall, we have another user that we looked at the beginning, Bob Barker. Now, Bob is an undergraduate student, and we don't have a digitization profile for undergraduate students. So if somehow Bob were to come along, see this link about a digital profile that the institution put somewhere, and he would log in. Sorry about that. Okay. Enter. Nothing. He doesn't have any deposits, and he's got no option to add a deposit. Nothing. However, while we have Greg, who still has his waiting for auto approve, he wants to tell his friends that he's already made a deposit. He wants to refer them to the article. He wants to see what's going on. He comes on in, and he can see his deposit here, that it was already submitted, that it was updated, and here it is. And he can actually look at the deposit, but he sees that it hasn't been submitted yet. It's still being worked on. Okay, so now we're going to go to the staff mediated deposits. And all of this is in the PowerPoint, like we stated. We're just doing it all live here. Let's just see if anyone has a question or comment before we move on to the staff mediated deposits. So let's take a look here. Anyone have a question? Send in a chat or just start talking if you have a question. No questions. All right. I'm going to assume everybody is still hearing me. Let's see who's with us here. Lainey Valentine, you hear us all right? Miles, you hear us all right? Okay. Roshan hears us. Okay. So everything's good. We're assuming everything's good. Omri Singer is with us. Hello, Omri. Meredith. Okay. Let's move on then. So now the staff mediated deposit. Staff mediated deposits are done by staff. If it's done by staff, it has to be done in the user interface. So let's do it now. I'm going to close my attendees list. Okay. So we've got resources and staff mediated deposit. And this is a staff user is depositing something digital on behalf of a patron. For example, instead of the institution making a link to where we just looked a moment ago, to the deposit profile, someone went into the intranet, put in the URL, or click the link here. Instead of sending a user here to create his own deposit, they may have the user send them an email, and then the institution wants to look at it first and then make the deposit. Somehow a staff user has a file that an end user wants to deposit into the Alma repository. Somehow that happened. We assume that it was sent perhaps by email or uploaded to some local site. In any case, the staff user has it. So now I'm going to create one on behalf of Greg. Actually, we got another user here. I got to use another user. Bjorg. Bjorg is also a graduate student. Like Greg, Bjorg is a graduate student. If Bjorg, here's Bjorg right here, graduate student, user group graduate student, and user group graduate student. So a staff-mediated deposit. Staff-mediated deposits are always auto-approved regardless of what's in the digitization profile. Again, if it's a staff-mediated deposit, it's always auto-approved regardless of whether auto-approve is checked or not in the integration profile. And the reason for that is we're figuring if a staff user is making the deposit, then he wants it really deposited. So we're going to deposit it on behalf of Bjorg. Or let's find another next one here. I'm going to keep these organized. Ones I already use, I keep in there. So this is going to be multimedia approaches to learning. Bjorg comes along. Oops, sorry, clicked the wrong icon. Okay. And there's only one deposit profile which can be used, the one for graduate students. And puts in the title. And this is going to be a derivative. Those of you who are into the digital know we're going to master in a derivative. Access rights. Next week, we're going to be talking about access rights. You don't want to miss that one. Public note. Popular article for Professor A. Okay. All right, entity type. This is going to be an article. And that's enough. Now, I can take the file from a folder. We're not going to get into that whole story, or just do an upload. So I'm going to upload the file, add files, and get that file just from where I saved it. Sorry, everybody's seeing everything on my PC now. Hope I don't have anything incriminating here. So we'll pop over to education, to digital, to patron and staff mediated deposits, articles, and there it is. Okay. So we're depositing it. Those of you who were in our session last week may recall we were in the metadata editor, created a representation, then we added a file the same way here. We clicked add files, submit. So now we've submitted this for Bjorg. It already made the record. Here's the record here. And we can take a look here. Automatically created. These are nice. Those of you who may have been, oh, Boaz is even with us today. Those of you who were in a session we did quite some time ago about creating local fields, local extensions, it was in that case, may recall a normalization rule that we had to automatically add these fields still in the system, and that's why it was created. Okay, not related to our specific case here. So it was already created, the record. And if we see here, if we go to resources, approved deposits, even though Bjorg, like Greg Brady, is an undergrad, it's not appearing in the approval lists, and it's not appearing in the approval lists because it was done by a staff user. It's a staff mediated deposits. All staff mediated deposits do not undergo auto approve. The assumption is if a staff user is making it, then it's going to be automatically approved. So that's a staff mediated deposit. If we come along now, we'll see that that one was created. We already saw that it was created. But if we go here and inbox, so there's two new messages now. One is going to be for the fact that it was submitted. This one here, to Bjorg, it was submitted. And the next one, this one here, approved. And there's a link directly to it, already appearing in Primo. There it is. And as far as what viewer we're viewing it in here, those of you who were with us last time will recall that we had rules for each of the viewers. I saw a question pop in, so I'm just bringing this up. We had these viewer services, and in each viewer service, we had defined all kinds of availability rules via different types of parameters, the material type, the representations files, and the usage type. And I see there's another question. What does the entity type field do? Is there related functionality? Other than appearance, not that I'm aware of other functionality. Let's just go look at what the user is talking about here. I will take any, it's not necessarily related to digital deposits, but if we come along to electronic titles, and we'll take one from last time, that nice flower we had, if you recall. Hold on, I'm just going to go this way so I find it, and then I'll get the real name. Oh, no, digital. That's why I didn't find it. Sorry about that. So I can go here with it. Brutus Dulcis from last time. Okay, so if we go here to the representation and type here, other than the appearance, no, it does not have functionality, not that I'm aware of. It's just signifying what it is. It does give additional fields, however. If I were to make this blank, here is what my representation details looks like. public note entity type, and then the file details. If I choose audio visual, then I have creator title track, because if it's audio visual, it might be like track 3. Maybe some of you even remember the 8-track tapes of one time. If I were to choose chapter, so now I've got author, title, number, start page, end page, and an article also gives me specific things to fill in. But other than that, nothing I'm aware of as far as the functionality goes. Okay, let's go on. So now we're ready to approve. So underneath resources, deposit, approve deposits, we've got everything waiting to be approved. They go into the unassigned. This is just like all of the places where something needs approval. Same thing with the invoices, the purchase order lines, purchase requests. They go into an unassigned. As soon as somebody touches them, if I want to look at this and say edit, play around with it, and return, I didn't approve it. No, not return. We'll talk about return in a minute. Go back. Now it automatically moved to the assigned to me. Then no one else is going to see it. Then I have a couple of options here. I can assign it to someone else. If I wanted to assign it to someone else, I would from here assign it to someone else. Release the assignment, in which case it's going to become unassigned again. And when I go and I look at it, I can approve it and say, okay, this is good. Immediately the patron will get an email that it's been approved, and it will go into the repository. The bibliographic record will be unsuppressed. The reason it will be unsuppressed is because in the digitization digital profile, we specify to unsuppress the bibliographic record. Then I can also say return. I want to return this to the user. Missing mandatory files, missing mandatory bibliographic information. I'm going to say, dear Greg, are you sure this? I could say, are you sure this is the correct one? And then he can get back to me, all different kinds of things. Or I can just approve it. For our time, let's approve it. It's automatically going to, automatically checked that it's going to unsuppress it. No special note, approve. And it was approved successfully. Now there's only one here, which was there before. There's none assigned to me. If Greg goes and checks his email, he's got it here. To Greg Brady, your deposit, et cetera, from National Taiwan University, report new data information science, has been approved. And he's got a link directly to it in Discovery. Now, I will point out here, in another 2 weeks, we're going to start digitization requests. This, what we've done now, is part of the repository. This record here, called Investigators from the Taiwan National University Report on blah, 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 blah. This is part of the Alma repository. If I look for this title, I'll find it. Ooh. Oh, because I'm looking there. It's not a deposit anymore. Okay. So this is part of the repository. If it were only a digitization request, and I'll point out the same thing when we get to the digitization requests, then it wouldn't actually be part of the repository. There is an option to send somebody a link for a digitization request, and they get the link and then they can download the file, but then it disappears after a certain time. This, I'm stressing, this digital deposit is now officially part of the repository. It has all of the attributes of a digital representation. It has a file, it has a collection, it has access rights. It may have undergone the need for copyright clearance before becoming an actual representation, and it will not disappear unless somebody manually deletes it. So I'm stressing that. If we go now and we look at one of these profiles, I just want to point out that they're all in the collection we specified. We specified that they're all going to the Library and Information Science scholarly articles from university staff and students. And when we're in Primo, do I have a Primo open here? No, I will open a Primo. There we are. So if we go and we look at that collection, either in Primo or in Alma, we'll see in that dedicated collection, I'm going to Collection Discovery, all of the deposits which were made. Here's the collection. And here's the one we did today, for example. Investigators from the National Taiwan University. Everything here is in that collection, and in our case was also deposited via the deposit profile. So that brings us to the end. Are there any questions or comments from anybody? Let's take a look. Anyone still have a question or comment on anything? Send in a chat if you have a question or comment, or you can just start talking. I'll give another moment or two. Let's take a look here. Participants. Any questions or comments from anybody? No questions or comments. Okay. So have a good day, everybody, and thanks everybody for joining us. And the recording of this session will be posted to the Knowledge Center, and we will send out a link. Have a nice day.